2025. This is Information Security Now. Information Security Now is a current events live stream where we check out what's going on with information security between hacking or any sort of, technology based instance that goes viral or whatever that may be. I mean, there was a pretty crazy live stream that occurred that went viral. We could talk about that and various other technology based, infosec based, information security. A lot of people think about cybersecurity, hacking in this sense. It's about information, it's about data, it's about networking in the sense of digital networking. So we'll just begin with Kanye West. He was hacked, so we're just going to go through. This is by Hot New Hip Hop. Says Instagram account was hacked following cryptocurrency launch. He launched a new cryptocurrency, YZY Money. Entered the game on August 20th. On his X account this morning, he posted, quote, "My Instagram has been hacked and it's following a fake coin." Oh, wow. So that's very interesting. Close. PSA: Kanye has unfollowed the fake IG account that's portraying the real YZY Money page. The troll's handle on the platform is YZYTKN. Had just under 1,000 followers. And it had a fraudulent QR code and comments filled with users warning others that it's fake. Very malicious, very difficult to do that and get away with it. Yet, and no, I'm sorry, very difficult to handle that situation if you're going to do that. QR codes are very risky, so you have to be sure the QR code that it's just like clicking a link. It's a link to a certain item on the internet. It's risky, or whatever the QR code may be. Let's go to Claude and find out all the different purposes of a QR code. Evolved far beyond their original purpose: marketing and advertisement, payments and transactions, information sharing, authenticity and security, inventory and tracking, navigation and location, digital content access, healthcare applications. The versatility of QR codes comes from their ability to store various types of data while being easily scannable with smartphones, making them a bridge between physical and digital experiences. I'm asking, so in computer science terms, what does it do? 2D barcode encodes data using a specific error-correcting algorithm, converts digital information, which can be text, URLs, or binary, which is zeros and ones, into visual pattern of black and white squares. Uses Reed-Solomon error correction to maintain data integrity, even if partially damaged. Interesting. You could go down a rabbit hole there. This is how you really, we'll continue. Can't store up to just under 4,300 alphanumeric characters of just under 3,000 bytes of binary. Dot, dot, dot. Format information, specifying error correction level, different encoding. We spoke about that. Redundancy through Reed-Solomon codes, four error correction levels, LMQH, allowing recovery of 7 to 30% of damaged data, enables reliable scanning, even with dirt, scratches, or poor lighting. Standardized input method for mobile. Data transmission between physical and digital systems. And when they say physical systems, I think of like offline to online bridge, like scanning to visit a website. So a menu, the digital aspect is on the menu. The menu is digital, and the scanning device is physical. And as I was going to say earlier, you can go down a rabbit hole here, and this is how you really get into AI and use AI, at least in my opinion, is you ask, okay, what's Reed-Solomon error? I don't know if this podcast is really about that, but we'll just ask it once. And that's why I say, like, you turn into Socrates, because it's asking questions, being more curious, not taking things for granted, not assuming things. Not assuming things is something that we in our society must become more comfortable with often. And this is why coding interviews, to me, and I understand why, because a lot of companies that do this are bigger companies, but coding interviews, it's like giving someone 30 minutes. I understand, because you've also seen someone who shows up at the job and they literally cannot add value immediately. So I've personally never been in that situation, but it can be very difficult, and there are multiple. What is consistent though is adding value, and I believe that is something that if you hold on to that as your root purpose, add value to the people around you, be someone that actually does something to help the situation rather than destroy the situation, although it may seem like you're destroying the situation, but often if you have a purpose, you understand that. And being able to communicate that is critically important. Reading helps you communicate. When you read more, you're able to have more tools available to communicate better. I'm not saying I'm great at it, but one thing is, once I started taking reading more seriously, I was always an engineer, math, science person, but once you're able to read, and even I'm a licensed professional engineer, but becoming a licensed professional engineer had a lot to do with reading, comprehension, language comprehension, working out critical problems. It wasn't as much math as you'd think or anything, physics. It was a lot of having a problem, reading about the problem, having a set of literature or a set of tools for reference, and going to that reference for whatever problem you're looking to solve. And so, even in the technical space, communicating effectively, communicating often, and communicating isn't always the simplest thing to do. Persistence is critical. Being respectful is critical, but persistence is absolutely critical. I'm not sure how I got down this rabbit hole from speaking about QR codes, but we'll go back to QR codes. So, what's Reed-Solomon error? Well, this is why. Because even in this, like, we're doing information security now, but it's about communicating with the AI to determine, okay, so QR codes, we just determined their purpose to have a medium between physical and digital systems, and functions as an offline to online bridge, enables a one-way data transfer from printed to computing display. And it referenced Reed-Solomon error, and you could just end it right there. You could just say, okay, that's why the QR code, that is what it is. But I also just asked, what's Reed-Solomon error? It's a mathematical algorithm used to detect and correct errors in data transmission or storage. Works in computer science terms. Forward error correction adds redundant data that allows the receiver to detect and fix errors without needing retransmission. That was a mouthful and I didn't fully comprehend that. Adds redundant data that allows the receiver to detect and fix errors without needing retransmission. Okay. Forward error correction, that makes sense. Based on polynomial mathematics, T symbol errors, where, okay, now T is equal to n minus k, that whole n minus k in parentheses over 2, with n being total symbols and k being data symbols. And then there's just a printed, looks like a proof, looks exactly like what a proof is. Original data treats it as coefficients of a polynomial, evaluates the polynomial at several points, parity symbols to the original data, uses the redundant info to reconstruct the original polynomial, even if some symbols are corrupted. And that's how I'm assuming, I wouldn't assume it said that up here, error correction. It says it's from, yeah, the error correction part up here. Dirt, scratches, or poor lighting allow there to be error for 7 to 30% of damaged data, allowing recovery of 7 to 30% of damaged data. Okay, we will, QR codes use Reed-Solomon with different levels. L, 7%, M, 15%, Q, 25%, H, 30% recovery. Self-healing. Modular arithmetic, not sure. I can't define that. I'm not going to go down that deep. All right, we'll go back. So that's a QR code. I got pretty deep into the mathematics there and the proof. And the reason I got into that was we were talking about Kanye's hack, and then we got into QR codes or alleged hack. I still don't know if this was definitively a hack. It seems like there was a fake account. I'm not sure. Fraudulent QR code, that's how we got into this. So QR code, don't scan those if you don't know what it is. I prefer to not scan any QR code. Sometimes you must. And if you're in a restaurant, I mean, there would have to be a pretty organized set of cyber hacking. It's much more difficult, I believe, over a restaurant, and that's where you usually see QR codes nowadays. But if you see one on the street and it says, scan this and good things will happen, be skeptical, go to a website and work on it from there, but be skeptical. Okay. His Instagram was hacked and following a fake coin. An impressive. So Kanye joined Solana blockchain last week. Impressive 3 billion, then lowered to around 1.5 billion. That's crazy. Okay, we'll continue. So I'm seeing things on AI memory being hacked. And I've spoken about this before. To me, MCP, Model Context Protocol, it seems like memory more so than anything with an API functionality based. Like, for example, you want context delivered from one application to another application, and it seems that I'm not sure, but maybe that's how I personally saw Model Context Protocol. I might not be correct in that to say that's what it is, but functionality across applications. So that would mean having a persistent connection from whatever tool you're using to any software or data set that would want to use that. In that case, I can imagine that would just be a lot of back end work more so than front end work, and defining a model context protocol which would be open. It seems it would just grab any different endpoint and hit that endpoint. I It seems simple to me now that I'm speaking it out. I've never really used it. It seems complicated based off of how it's spoken about, not how I interpret what it should be. Should be kind of an open application to whatever's connected, of course securely, and through that you have a connection that's able to interpret which endpoint you want to hit. You hit that endpoint, and that's about it. It returns something and you get your data, or you have a confirmation of whatever you wanted is done. It just seems the medium is human language rather than direct input, which changes many things. It changes many things. I'm not exactly sure what it changes. We'll continue. But the reason I got into this is because, oh, well, here we go. One thing is, so Kanye's coin is down 81%, spiked to 7 million before crashing down to 160. This is in Decrypt by Logan Hitchcock. That's 81%. Trades around 73 million market cap. Boasts nearly 20 million followers. This is Kanye. Calls a fake coin. Pump.fun earlier Tuesday. So yes, there was, and then here's the QR code. This is a very sophisticated looking QR code. Okay. From the Instagram account YZYKTN, which we said. Interesting. All right, that's it for Kanye, and we'll move on to Nevada. Nevada targeted in cyber attack. So we've spoken about the city of Minneapolis, the state of Pennsylvania being hacked, and now we have Nevada. Closure of many state agencies, deactivated sites and phone lines. network security incident and engaged 24/7 recovery, targeted state prompted government investigation, state and federal, ongoing technological meltdown. Wouldn't directly address whether the state systems were hacked or whether the state is being asked to pay a ransom to restore its online capabilities. Brazen cyber terrorism, impacted the technology systems. It's very serious. And I hope that there's kind of this running joke. It's not really a joke. It's just this sentiment that private entities are highly excelling in these types of domains. And it's not easy for the government, but this is not. And there are various levels of information and different security levels that define what must and mustn't be behind each protocol. And it's sophisticated and I believe updated regularly. But these issues often are a result of not being up to date with your cybersecurity. Not always. You don't know what this is. Let's continue. Didn't impact state payroll. State Department wanted to keep proprietary info private. Looking to restore services. So it didn't say anything. It just said that services were cut out. And that's selected. Here's a township, Westchester Township. Second potential breach. Same hacking group in the last month. Targeted township central email server. It's things like these. Having your own email, not really necessary. Probably moving your data to a secure cloud environment is likely the better way to handle that. Quickly isolated and contained. And these are legacy systems. So a lot of these are older and it becomes difficult. And it's just about doing it. So this is in the greater Cincinnati area. And this was in Cincinnati.com and the Inquirer. Protect systems and sensitive data. Okay. So government entities do get hacked quite often. Let's continue with another article on Nevada. Temporary routing, operational workarounds to maintain public access where feasible, network incident, and this references an old ransomware attack across Las Vegas. But I don't believe that we know for sure this is a ransomware attack. This was in September of 2023. Okay, we'll continue. AI, so this is a new one from Emerge. Why I brought up model context protocol. AI can be hacked with a simple typo in its memory. Da da da. Deep learning models can be sabotaged by flipping a single bit in memory. One flip is called the attack. Hacker doesn't need to retrain the model, rewrite its code, or even make it less accurate. They just need to plant a microscopic backdoor. An AI model at its core is just a list of numbers called weights stored in memory. Flip one into a zero or vice versa, and you've altered the model's behavior. Sneaking a type into, well, I think and this is making the analogy that could turn a self-driving car that recognizes stop signs perfectly, but then once its bit is flipped, it thinks they're green lights. And this goes to a bigger issue of robotics and the most devastating cyber attacks. Oh man, the most devastating cyber attacks are the ones that affect critical infrastructure, whether that's 2015 Christmas in Ukraine, 2012 Stuxnet, 2020 pipelines. I believe those were 2020 pipelines in the USA, or maybe 2021. I really don't remember what years. And these, now that we're coming out with more robotics, and I've made this analogy before about, I've seen robot masseuses, and I mean, this robot has the potential when it's massaging you, you're on your stomach, it's massaging your back. It has the potential to crush you. It has the potential to, one thing, it doesn't recognize it doesn't recognize how much pressure is hurting you or possibly injuring you, or as this thing says, the one bit flip, and you suddenly have a robot that will just go straight down until it can't go anymore, possibly go down until it breaks itself, which could seriously injure, if not kill you. I mean, this is no joke. When we get these robots in, it's going to be the most damaging cyber attacks. Won't be the information security ones. They will be the robot ones. And make no doubt about it, drones and self-driving cars, those are robots. People like to say, I was talking to some guy and he was saying he didn't think humanoids were going to be the first or most impactful robots. Well, drones are robots. UAVs, aquatic UAVs are robots. Self-driving cars are robots. You put a smart device in these things and you give them enough juice. I mean, they don't need that much juice to do something crazy. They just need one charge. And so these robots, once you give them the potential, will have a lot more power. And it'll be interesting. I personally won't be getting a massage from a robot soon. It's that's Because people talk about, there's this analogy of like a paperclip machine, and it just doesn't stop, and it just makes paper clips out of the whole universe. Well, someone might stop the robot before, after a couple million paper clips. It's like, all right, we need to pull the plug. Well, one instance, you're in a robot masseuse chair, boom. Just take one instance to ruin your life. And these robots they don't have feelings. And that will be, I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You can only bring it to the imagination. You really can't be sure until it's deployed. Okay. Da da da. All right, we have this one last item. Okay, here's another one. The Rowhammer connection. Known hardware attack known as Rowhammer, which a hacker hammers one part of the memory so aggressively that it causes a tiny ripple effect, flipping a neighboring bit by accident. Well known among more sophisticated hackers who have used it to break into operating systems or steal encryption keys. And this goes to another point where I spoke about this way long ago, was people were going to create their own operating systems, and now you're seeing it. XAI, Elon Musk's company, is releasing their own fully AI open source, or I'm sorry, it's not open source, I have no idea. Fully AI operating system. That's crazy. That's crazy. What does this mean? I mean, it's really coming to an inflection point where, I mean, I don't know if that inflection point will be soon, but I would say that we've reached an inflection point with Web 2.0, Web 2.0 for a few years now, where its power is obvious, hugely transformative. The stock market in the US is largely pulled by those companies. And now you have AI, which seems more consequential. I really don't know about that because I don't know how consequential the pre and post internet was in the sense of a business, in the sense of starting up a business. Another analogy for me is I don't understand really a recession from the standpoint of someone who's looking at the market, because in 2008 I was in high school. Luckily, I wasn't too affected by it, and it really, even if I was significantly affected by it, it wouldn't have been like I am today, where I've been analyzing the market. I've been analyzing when it was good and bad, and I'm able to have a more solid understanding of what it means. But AI is crazy. AI is crazy. I mean, I think it impacts everyone's life in a way that crypto did not. And Paul Graham said this. He was like, seems like AI is going to be more, and it affects people's lives immediately. Immediately, it's been affecting people's lives, even when it was bad, which I would say was, and it wasn't bad. 2022, November 2022, when 3.5 came out, ChatGPT 3.5, it wasn't that great. I would say it still wasn't that great for maybe a full year. I would say it was nearly unusable. And the coding was nearly unusable for me until Claude Sonnet 4. And I've heard really great things about 2.5 Pro. So I'm excited to check out 2.5 Pro. And this is really difficult for companies that aren't going full vertical integration, because if you're a pure software company or a pure extension company like Cursor, you're going to have a lot of competition. Google has an extension on VS Code. AWS has an extension on VS Code that also uses Claude. GitHub has its own extension. And that's a feature, and if you can make it in that business like they have, then props. But as far as long-term market, you consistent and long-term use, it's going to be an interesting move. I think existing software companies are going to have a very difficult time. I'm a little sad about Apple falling behind. It is a company that is in such good position and has been so conservative in the last 15 years. And the only thing that they really weren't conservative about, I would say, is Vision Pro. And even that is conservative because you're kind of just copying what was already out there with MetaQuest. So I thought it was kind of maybe not necessarily conservative as much as not the best product. And again, they should have a full open API platform connected to Siri. It's very difficult. That goes into their apps. I understand why they might not want to do that, but they need to become the MCP distributor. They have so much market share of a critical component to the next 15 to 20 years of our lives, which is, and it's been a critical component for the last 10 to 15 years. And I think it will just increase in importance and value with AI, with crypto, with biometric, whatever improved biometric and networking aspect comes into play, or whatever cybersecurity aspect comes into play, like passcodes, that's what they have now. And it's a huge part of Web3. And if they can expand on their password application and their passcode functionality and their Apple Wallet functionality and get a device, be a little bit. And I know I've read that Steve Jobs was always a no man, but they need someone who is like, just, it's tough. It's very tough. I can't imagine what it's like to be an employee at Apple right now. It's got to be such a crazy time in that company's history. But I love the company. I've loved the products. And it's probably the best product ever. I mean, if there's another product that comes out in our life that's as amazing and influential, I mean, it's been nearly 20 years of iPhone. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like it, and it still hasn't changed, and it's still great, and it's losing market share, so you know something's coming up. But they have a great position of where they are, and you hope that they can turn things around and start becoming, I mean, they're a system integrator. That's a system integration company. It's not necessarily an innovation company outside of how well and how properly they integrate their products, which is very important and very valuable. It's the most valuable thing. I mean, I don't know. NVIDIA now, I'm not really sure the science of the science and where their supply chain, how the science and the supply chain of the tooling. I kind of went into it with the Acquired podcast, but the science of the tooling, the science of the operation of the tooling, the science of the design, how that all comes together, I've heard is some of the most, based off of what Acquired podcast was saying, is some of the most sophisticated engineering, science type of possibly. I mean, they literally said things along the line of, I don't know if they actually said these, but it seemed like, and they may have, I just don't want to quote it, that this is some of the most technical and hard, difficult things being done in the world. So engineering, keep going, guys. Information security, it's about software, it's about figuring it out in terms of our society, how it will integrate, how it changes our life in positive and negative ways, because it does both. And to romanticize one without accepting the other is wrong, not in the sense of it's definitely wrong, but it's just not, it's not as helpful, it's not as true, and it's not as helpful as just kind of admitting that there are pros and cons and attempting to double down on how much you get out of the pros and attempting to avoid the cons to the best of your ability, which is much easier to say than to practice. In practice, it's very difficult. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. And we will come to you with a new sponsor likely in my next information security podcast. So, this podcast, I'm sorry, information security live stream. In case you don't know, I have a few businesses. And right now, I will just mention one, Qnity. Qnity is for creators, is for people that are looking to organize their digital footprint, organize their media, have a public area where they're able to really distribute themselves. We're coming out with a lot of features in the next few years, next year, next few years. But if you're a creator, if you have multiple platforms, possibly a business, and you're looking to organize all that, reach out to me and we'll talk about your values in terms of what you want to get, what you don't have, and I can inform you of what we're